Thank you for joining me today, Alonzo. I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
I was born in Newburgh, Indiana, February 2nd, 1942, on the corner of 3rd and Monroe, right across from, adjacent to Wittenbreaker's landscape service there. I was born to Alonzo and Lavinia Moore.
All right.
I was birth at home.
Okay, yeah. So, did you attend Jefferson Street School, and if so, when?
Yes, I did. I started Jefferson Street School 1946, September 1946. Sure did.
All right. And so, what was your experience like at the Jefferson Street School?
It was all that we had at the time, so we dealt with it. You know, we had excellent teachers. All the teachers were very qualified, you know, and I think they all had to know music. It was one of the requirements, you know. They probably had to learn a lot or know a lot about the different subjects in school, because every morning we would do the Pledge of Allegiance, we'd say the Lord's Prayer, and we would had a book there, we would sing one song out of the book, you know, regardless of what it was. The teacher would select a song out of there. So it was an enjoyable time. We had plays, and we had entertainment for the PTA, I guess you would call it, you know, at that time. But we, a couple of times a year, we would do that, you know. But it was enjoyable. Like I said, it was all we had, so we made the best of what we had.
Yeah, absolutely. So, did your family go to church here?
Yep, we went to church around the corner here on Sycamore Street. There's a new church there now, but at the time that they started there, it was an old church, an old building, and 1973, I believe it was, they started having dinner, selling dinners to raise money, because there weren't a lot of members in the church there, so they started selling dinners to raise money to buy a new church. And the pastor of the church across the street here, at the time, my sister was, she had a very beautiful voice, and she lived in Boston. And he said, why don't you have your sister to come down and put on a musical at my church and raise some money for the church. I thought that was beautiful, you know. That was maybe 1971, I guess it was, you know. So she did, and I still have one of the tickets at home now that we use there.
Oh, wow.
But it went great, you know, and they built a new church. Could I tell you this story about the church? You know, like I said, they're cooking dinners, selling dinners on Sunday or whatever, and the pastor they had over the church would come up on some Saturday nights, and he would spend the whole night in a tent in my dad's backyard barbecuing to sell the next day. You know? Well, the general that my dad worked for, W.A. Carson, asked my dad told me he wouldn't be at work one day, Saturday, I believe it was, they were going to be selling barbecue. He said, what for? So my dad told him that we're trying to raise money to build a new church, you know. He said, well, you didn't tell me that. And he said, well, you know, that's what we're doing, you know. He said, well, here, let me give you some money. This is a true story. So he went and got his checkbook. He wrote my dad a check for $500, you know.
Wow.
And his son was there. Mr. Carson's son was there, Ellis Carson, his own son being practiced. He was there. He said, well, what is that for, Dad? And he said, Alonzo and them are building a new church, and I'm going to give them a donation. And he said, I want to give him blankety blank for that church. Now, I don't want to say what he said, but I'm telling you what my dad said that he said. So Mr. Carter said, Alonzo, he said, bring that check back to me. He took that check back and he tore it up. Forgive me. But he wrote him one for $5,000. And the church had cost about $14,000 back then, and a local contractor built it, Jack Pruden built it, you know. But he said, yeah, I'll take care of that, you know. Wrote him one from $500 to $5,000, you know. So they thought a lot of my dad, you know, and his bet on the church too, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. I haven't heard that story before.
I guess because you haven't talked to me before.
I guess so, surely. Wow.
Yeah, but my dad worked for me for a long time. This is not what you come here to talk about. My dad worked for him for a long time, and one day, I'm going to tell you this, and you can cut it out if you want to, you know. But my dad told Mrs. Carson, he said, I won't be at work tomorrow. He said, I'm going to have to go to the dentist. And she said, what for? He said, well, I have some teeth that need to be extracted. And he has teeth that need to come out. She said, I'll tell you what. Said, I'm going to call my dentist. I want you to go to him. My dad said, what? She said, yeah. I said, I'll get you an appointment with him. So she did. And my dad, from years ago, had a little piece of gold in his mouth, about like what I have here now, you know. And she said, I tell you what, said you go down there and you have him to make you 2 sets of teeth, one for every day working, and put the gold on the set that you have of going to church.
All right.
You don't have to put this in there, you know, just some life stories, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
But anyway, you know, that's part of life too, you know.
Yes. So, what was the socioeconomic life outside of the school and church environment?
In my family, it wasn't too bad. My parents were both employed, and you may call them domestics, but my dad was a cook and a chauffeur, and my mother cooked for a Eigelhart family and a Bolin family that lived downtown in the house that used to sit next to the town hall, the old yellow building.
Yeah.
So we had what we wanted. We were poor, but we didn't know it, you know,
Yes.
compared to some others,
Yep.
you know. Then too, we may have been a little bit better off than some of the other neighbors because both of my parents worked, you know, had a little bit coming in, you know. But it wasn't that bad. And when I was in high school, I worked, and that helped out a little bit. I kept some change in my pocket. There was a doctor here in Newburgh named there's a Roger Wadzowski or something. He's from up around Chicago, and people had a hard time pronouncing his last name, so they just called him Dr. Roger.
All right.
Dr. Roger, that was it, you
Yeah.
know. But I worked for him, I guess, for 3 or 4 years while I was in high school. And I would clean up the office, and I would trim and file x-rays. And back then, they didn't have the needles, disposable needles like they have now.
Yeah.
So I had to sharpen and sterilize the needles for them. You know. But I enjoyed that for about 2.5 years. When I was in high school, it gave me money to buy me some clothes or go to the theater once in a while. You know, so
Yes.
I enjoyed that. You know.
So, so outside of that, do you recall if there was any talk around the table at home with the Supreme Court issued the Brown versus Board of Education
Well,
in '54?
that was, you know,
Yeah.
especially from my dad. Well, both my mother and my dad, but my dad talked about that quite a bit because he was from down south. You know, he had a little hard upbringing, you know, as a kid, you know. But we talked about that. I think that may have been, I don't know, May 1954. I just don't remember the date.
Yeah.
But my parents had already made arrangements for me to go to Lincoln High School. But that was customary back then. You know.
Okay.
And of course, the township trustee furnished the tickets for us to catch the NOV and go into Edmondsville to Lincoln High School. You know, so that's what I did the first year, my freshman year in 1954, when I graduated from Jefferson Street Colored School, as they called it back then. I went to Lincoln. I and there were 4 others, I believe, that went to Lincoln High School.
Yeah.
The next year, 1955, I decided to go to Newburgh. Walk right past the school to catch the bus to go to Edmondsville.
Yeah.
You know. But the township trustee gave us a choice. If you wanted to go, you know, they would see that you got the ticket, you know. So there were 3 people that blacks that continued to go to Lincoln High School, you know. There was a Peggy Caldwell and Leslie Barnett, I believe, that continued to go to Lincoln. But after I came to Newburgh, I was a little disgruntled, I guess, because it may have been due to the tax structure there in Vanderbilt County. Because at Lincoln High School, they had classes that they probably even thought of here in Newburgh High School, you know. So I think I kind of missed out on that, you know, not being able to take some of the things that I wanted, you know, like chemistry. I think they had a biology class, but they never did anything. Or here in Newburgh, that is. No, not at that time until they got Castle.
Okay. So how long would you say it took for the schools in Newburgh and Evansville to fully desegregate?
I don't know too much about Evansville. Probably about the same time, I guess.
Yeah.
Here in Newburgh, like I said, it's passed in May of 1954. We could have gone to Newburgh High School at that time, but we did not choose to do so. You know, 4 of us did at that time, you know. It wasn't as bad in Newburgh as it was some of the other places and some of the other towns and cities away from Newburgh. The kids, they built the youth foundation, I think it's a nursery or something that's down the hill here from here. Maybe in the early 50s, I guess, I don't recall. But we played together all summer. We'd choose up baseball teams, you know, and played ping pong and box and had a tennis court and basketball court out back, so we got along together. The kids did.
Yeah, good. As
All
kids
summer
should.
long, when it came time to go to school, we went our separate ways, you know. A lot of times after school, neighbors would still play together, you know, which I thought, we never thought anything about it, you know, but it was just life back then,
Yeah.
you know. And,
So you mentioned you went to Lincoln High School for a year. Where did you go after that?
Newburgh High School.
To the Newburgh High School,
The old
okay.
Newburgh High School closed in 59, I
Yep,
believe it was, the last year for that, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, came back, went to Newburgh High School, graduated from Newburgh High School in 1958.
Okay, all right.
You probably don't want to see this, but you can.
Yeah. Oh, wow. The class photo of 58. Wow. Yeah, this is great to have.
You know, but we got together along in school. You know, we
Yeah.
never had any problems. You know, because
And I think
people-
I've seen pictures of Barnett there before.
yeah. He lives out in California now. In fact, not too many of us left out of that class. You
Yeah,
know.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, but.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really happy you brought this for me to see
Oh,
today.
thank
This
you.
is
I'm
wonderful.
glad that you appreciate that.
Well, yes. And the way these portraits are taken are wonderful.
Yeah, we had those made at a place. I think it was mostly a ladies' store, Psalms, I believe it was in Evansville, down on the corner of 4th and Locust, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm familiar with
I
that
think that's
area.
where they did those pictures, those photos for us.
So what was your experience like whenever you integrated? Was it a big like culture shock or anything, or was it a pretty smooth transition?
Cultural shock because most of the people that lived in town, I knew them by name.
Yeah.
Either kids or the grown people too, or knew them by facial, you know, just
Yeah,
recognized
yeah.
them, you know. So it wasn't like it was probably in some of the bigger towns, you know. Probably wasn't like it was in Evansville.
Yeah.
You know, they had a few disturbances there in Evansville when they started that desegregation. But here in Newburgh, we never had any problems.
Yeah.
You know. We got
I'd
along
imagine that.
together.
It's a smaller town, so yeah.
You know, I know there was a Mr. Hasselmar. He was principal down here. And one time he was a basketball coach, and they had interviewed, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us downtown a few years ago. And it may have been the Newburgh Historic Club, I don't recall it exactly. But they asked Mr. Hasselmar, what is the difference between Newburgh now and when you were younger, when you were growing up? You know, because he's raised up here in Newburgh. He said, I'll tell you, he said, people aren't as friendly now as they were when I was growing up, you know. So I kind of agreed with him on that. You know,
kind of feel like,
yeah, you know.
you feel like there's been a loss of that connection and personableness.
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times people know each other over the years, you know,
Yeah,
and they recognize each other, you know. And, so no problem there.
So you mentioned, you know, playing after school with the neighbor kids. What other social or cultural aspects were integrated during the time?
We didn't. This is back, I'm speaking back before we had television, before television was, you know, like
Yeah.
worldwide or county-wide or whatever, you know. So we did, the kids did a lot of trading funny books.
Okay.
You know, that was one
Yeah.
thing that we did. We enjoyed doing that. And we weren't above, like I said, we didn't have TV, but we were not above going around to some of their homes. A lot of people, especially the women in the homes, took magazines, subscribed to magazines
Yeah,
like Better Home and Garden,
Exactly,
Look, and
yeah.
Saturday Evening Post. You know, my mother took a few of them, but we weren't above going by knocking on doors asking if they had any old magazines.
Oh, yeah. That would
Give us something to do, and don't let us find a coupon in there where we could get something free. You know.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, we'd get a stamp and off it would go. You know.
Yes.
But we made it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Well, that's good. And so, do you feel it was an easy acceptance into the white community at Lincoln and at Newburgh High
I'm sorry.
School?
What did you say? Well,
It's okay. Do you feel there was an easy acceptance from the white community during that desegregation period?
yeah. Well, you know, we were accustomed to each other here in Newburgh.
Yeah,
You know, there
yeah.
wasn't like that you just
They're
came
all
in
just
town
your
as a
neighbors,
stranger.
your
you know.
neighbor,
Yeah,
exactly.
your neighbors, you know.
Yeah.
We got along with neighbors, and even some of those that were not our neighbors. We see them on the street, we know them.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly.
That was back when downtown in Newburgh, they had something that you needed, like grocery stores. Had 2 or
Yeah.
3 grocery stores down there, and a drugstore and a dry goods store, you know. And but now downtown in Newburgh is something that you want. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, you want it. You don't necessarily need it, but you know, it's there is a difference in my opinion on that. You know, when you go downtown and get your groceries, you know.
Yes.
Can I tell you a little story about that? You can cut all this out if you want to. I don't care.
Oh,
you
we
know.
want to
But,
hear it.
My mother worked for an Eigelhart family down here. She was a cook down there, you know, and I'd go down, cut the grass once in a while, and sweep the sidewalks. And there was a gentleman that used to be a house over here on the corner, just behind the church parking lot there, that would go downtown and get his groceries, and he carried them in a basket.
Yeah.
You know, in a basket. And a lot of times he'd pass by there, you know, just happened that he'd get his groceries the same day I'd be sweeping, you know. And he said, "Good morning, Alonzo." So whatever his name was, you know, I said, "Good morning." And at that same time, there's a gentleman that lived up on the corner of Cypress and, whatever it is, up the street from me there anyway, that would also get his groceries in a basket, but he would go up towards Gray Street when he would pass through there, you know. Let me go back to the school. When I was in school, there were a couple of little black kids. Of course, they were black. We all black went to that school over there. But they had a paper route in the morning. You know, these 2 little boys did. And one morning, they were delivering the papers at this house up there. The gentleman's last name was Allen, I remember that. But they would drop his paper on his front porch, go around the side of his house, and go on over to the next street. Instead of going up to the corner. And that one morning, they walked into a gentleman that hung himself in a tree out in his yard.
Wow.
Yeah, sure had. You know, that I think they said it was from when they had the Depression, I think. You know, a lot of people
Wow.
lost their cool, you know.
And that's not
But-
what you'd
but any-
expect on your daily
I know,
paper
and especially
route.
a little kid,
Yeah.
you know. And but anyway, my mother said, "Oh, so you know him? So he passes here all the time, you know, with that basket on his arms." So I was just sleeping one day. I might have been, I don't know, 12, 13 years old. I'm just guessing. And someone said, "Good morning, Alonzo." And I looked up and it was this guy, but I thought it was the one that
The other guy.
That hung
Oh
himself.
no.
I came loose at the joints, you know. I said, "Oh no, this is not happening," you know.
Thought you saw a ghost for
Yeah,
a second.
it was my fault. I had it mixed up, you know, because he was on the other side of the street there, you know.
Oh
but, you know.
goodness. Yeah, that's
Just thought I'd share that with you.
that is quite the mix-up. So overall, would you say you had a happy childhood living here in
Oh,
Newburgh?
yeah, I sure did. I had anything that I wanted. You know, we had there were 5 of us in the family, and I was the youngest one. But you know, my parents did for me what they could. You know,
Yeah.
and probably some of the things that they probably should not have. You know, and I probably did some of the things that I should not have. You know? Yeah, but yeah, I had a happy childhood. You know, no complaints about it at all.
Well, that's good. So what type of activities did you enjoy doing?
There wasn't much to do around here in Newburgh. You know, not until they built the youth foundation down the street there.
Yeah.
We would just roam the ditches and see if
Yeah.
we catch some fish. Or sometimes there would be a place where we'd get some crawfish, and there was a gentleman down here on Water Street, Henry Chase, and he sold fishing tackle and bait. And if we got enough crawfish, we sell them to him. You
Yeah,
know.
okay.
We got on 2 for a penny or something like, get us a little change in our pocket, but didn't have too much to do around in Newburgh.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, go to the movie
Yeah.
theater once in a while. you know.
Yeah, so the Princess Theater was something that was here. Were you all welcome into the Princess Theater? Was there a certain segregated seating area for the African American community? What was that like?
Yeah, we had the best seats in the house.
Oh yeah.
They made us sit upstairs.
Yeah,
And
okay.
the floor was slanted upstairs, but downstairs it was just one level, you know. So we had the best seat in the house, and we enjoyed it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just what we had, but
Yeah.
they were not hurting us because we, like I said, the best seat in the house is
Yeah,
where
you
not
get to
looking
be
through
above
somebody-
and you see
Yeah.
it all. So,
Right.
Now, something else that was local to the area was Pfafflin Lake. And I know that closed down in, I think, 63.
Mm-hmm.
Now, was that an area that you guys were able to go and enjoy, or was that also a segregated environment?
Mr. Pappin didn't want us to drive by and look at it.
Well, dang.
When I was a senior, it got cold that winter, and the lake froze. A part of it did. And they wanted to go. The seniors wanted to go up there and have a skating party, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So someone said, "Well, I asked Mr. Paffin." He said, "No, he didn't want us up there then either. We couldn't get the water there. We were not going to get the water, contaminate the water, you know.
Yeah.
But he just didn't want us up there." And, you know.
Wow. Well, that's a shame. So where would you go swimming to cool off from the hot sun?
Down to the river.
Yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
And they had a swimming pool there at Edison we'd go to once in a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just off of Lincoln Avenue. We'd not a whole lot because we had to catch a bus to go down, but you know, maybe once, twice a month we'd catch a bus and go down there.
Okay. Yeah.
But
So-
most of it was done in the river.
Yep. That's.
We were not supposed to be there, but we
Yeah.
went anyway. And then there was Scales Lake up in Boonville.
Yes. Yeah. Uh huh.
We'd go up there sometimes.
Really.
Got someone that had a transportation for us, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to have because that's still a very prominent community lake to this
Right.
day. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
Huh. So, have you heard of the Newburgh JCs? Do you know what impact did they have on you?
A whole lot.
Uh-huh.
Here we go. Don't ask me these things because I get to talking about them, you know. The JCs used to have the best barbecue chicken in the area, you know. This is back in, I don't know when they started, 60s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started working at Alcoa, I would stop on Saturdays when they have it, get me half a chicken to take to work.
Yeah.
You know? And I enjoyed it. So one day, Jerry Jackson came to my house on a Saturday afternoon and introduced himself, and he said he was at the Newburgh JC. He said, I'm familiar with the work that they do around town, you know. And he said, I'd like for you to come go meeting with me tomorrow night, which would have been a Sunday night. And he said, I told him I was going over and talk to you, and he said, some of them told me that if I brought you down here, they would quit. He said, we'll go on. He said, I want you to go, and he said, we're going to see if they're going to quit, you know. So he came by and picked me up on that Sunday afternoon. We went to the meeting, and it was just the opposite, you know. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
They asked me to join. I'm sorry. But the gentleman that was the president, they said, we're going to have to get you a vest, JC vest.
Uh-huh.
He took his vest off and gave it to me. He said, I'll get one. He said, I want you in here.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was great, you know, because I knew they did a lot of work around town, you know. And I don't know, the next meeting, they elected me to be the state director. I was to take care of the communications between the chapter and the state, you know. The next year, they forced me into being a secretary. And I had to know the names of 122 people.
Ooh. Sure stepped it up there.
I thought it was nice for them, some of them saying that if I joined, they would quit. The next year, they wanted me to run for external vice president. And the only thing I could think of that needed to be done in Newburgh at that time was the only green spot we had downtown was the Newburgh Library lawn. Mm-hmm. So I initiated a program called the Beautification of the Library lawn. So we bought some shrubs and put it around the flagpole there, you know. So the next year they wanted me to run for president. I said, I don't know about this now. You know, I don't know about that. But they ran me for president. I got elected, and I just enjoyed myself
Wow.
immensely, you know.
Yeah.
Got to travel to a lot of places, you know, man, and met a whole lot of nice people, you know, and they were all nice. I think we had one problem at one time. The JCs had a weekend meeting up in Terre Haute. And so I don't know, 4 or 5 of us decided we'd go over to West Terre Haute on a Friday night, you know. So we went over there to one of the places of entertainment, one of the bars. We walked in, and they wouldn't serve us. This was about 6:30 in the evening, you know. This is West Terre Haute. They wouldn't serve us, you know, so they said we're closed. So there was one little guy that was with us. He said, I see you serve those guys up there at the bar. He said, yeah, but we're closed. So he said, two guys came in. He said, if they serve either one of them, he said, the first thing hits the bar is mine.
Wow.
It was a bad attitude for JC to have, but they didn't like it. They're doing this because of my complexion, you know. So anyway, the guy ordered the beer, and that little sucker scrambled up there and got that beer. And he said, I thought you were closed. So guy said, we are. I said, we are closed, you know. So they went over and locked the door then, you know. So we sat there for, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
You're okay.
For a few more minutes, we decided we would leave, you know. And this guy that was driving, we were parked on the right side of the street, but the police was parked down the street on the other side. They'd call the police. We weren't going to do anything. So this friend of ours got in his car, and he pulled up on the wrong side of the street where he could talk to the police, you know. He said, I think you need to talk to some of these citizens around here, tell them how they're supposed to treat people, you know. He said, well, I think you need to get on the right side of the street unless you be using your insurance. He said, I have insurance, you know. But anyway, it's just one of those stories about how some people look at you, you know, looked at me, you know. We didn't intend to cause any harm, just wanted to have a nightcap, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Life is life, you know.
But it sounded like you had a really good support system from it sounded like you have a good support system from the JCs.
Oh, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Bunch of great guys. I mean, most of us are gone now, you know, but we raised a lot of money, had a whole lot of fun. You know, in fact, the JC's the one that initiated the pool over here. Whether you remember that or not, you know.
I didn't know
I did have a picture of one of the gentlemen who was really, really good at that. And it's when they were just digging for the pool. He was walking around on some of that dirt where they were digging for the pool, you know. But anyway, we had a lot of fun, learned a whole lot, you know. Got a whole lot of awards, you know. But, that was just part of the deal, you know.
So what did you do after your high school graduation?
Yeah, had an opportunity to go to U of E, but I don't know. Sometimes when you're young, you have different ideas than your parents have. You know, at least that was what it was with me.
Yes.
This gentleman that my dad worked for, W. Carson, he said that I could go to school, and when I got out, got a job, pay him back. You know, but I decided I think I'd rather get married. You know.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you get married?
About 6 months after I graduated.
Okay. Wow.
Got married in December, graduated in May, about December of 1958. Anyway, that was another mistake I made in my life. God forgive me.
My. And did you have any children?
No, we had had 5 kids. One of them died at childbirth, and had one that was born on Christmas Day.
Wow.
1959. So proud of that, man. Have you heard this before?
That's okay.
Huh?
Go ahead and tell it.
Well, anyway, Dr. Calvin was the main doctor here in Newburgh, the medical doctor. His dad was a dentist. You know, he said he had just sat down to have Christmas dinner, and a telephone rang, and it was they're calling him, telling him he had a birthday, St. Mary's. You don't have the So it was my wife. You know, it's Christmas morning. So he teased me for years that I owed him a Christmas dinner. He was having dinner with his mother and father at that time, you know. So you owe me a Christmas dinner. That went on until he was coming out of Boonville. He loved to ride motorcycles. He was coming out of Boonville one day and he ran off the road, and my son just happened to be behind him. My son went down and got the motorcycle off of him. So the next time I saw Dr. Calvin, he said, we're even now. He said, you don't owe me dinner. He said, your son helped me out when I needed someone. You know.
Wow.
But anyway, back to this daughter of mine that was born on Christmas Day. Give me a minute here, buddy. A lot of times in life, or all the times in life, God knows more than we do.
Yes.
Give me a minute here, buddy.
Okay, it takes much time.
My daughter was born on Christmas Day, and God knew what was going to happen. 14 years later, on Christmas Day, you know, So anyway, I was so happy with her, you know. And 14 years later, that was my Christmas baby. 14 years later, I just come home from work at Alcoa, working in the afternoon. She had a telephone ring, and it was St. Mary's calling. They said, Alonzo Moore? I said, yeah. I said, Junior? I said, yes. And the lady said, well, we decided to call you and see your dad. I said, your dad may be at home by himself. We don't know. But your mother has just expired. Christmas Day, you know. I said, the first thing I said, God, I said, why on Christmas Day? And almost immediately I said, I have no right to question God's works. I'm sorry. You know,
That's okay.
that's what I said, you know, to myself. I have no reason to question the work of God, you know, and that's the way I accepted that. But I thought all along that my daughter was born on Christmas Day because God knew what was coming down the road. And he gave me that daughter to compensate. This is just my opinion. But I was happy that she was born on Jesus' celebrated birthday, and I was happy that my mother died on his celebrated birthday. You know? So anyway, I got joy out of both of them. But now my daughter's gone. You know, she died about 2 years ago, I guess it was, you know. You don't have to put all this in there, Randy, but, you know, life is life, buddy.
It is very beautiful miracles and God works in
I'm
very
sorry.
interesting
Take
ways.
this out, I wipe my nose.
You're okay.
We're gonna take a break.
I'm sorry about that. Bye. But sometimes things get a little touchy in life. You
Well,
know?
it does.
It's overwhelming, in life.
Okay,
It
now where we
is.
want to go from here? I'm sorry.
All right. Oh, it is A-okay. All right, so let's see. Here, we'll switch things up a little bit. So, what was your view on the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Do what now? I'm sorry.
It's okay. What was your view on the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Well, I wish that I could have been where I could have been closer to him, you know,
Yeah.
and learn more from him or about him, you know. But he had good ideas and ideologies too, you know. And just sorry that his life was cut short.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Sometimes the good die young.
Yes,
you know.
very much so.
Yeah, and it's not their choice, you know.
Yep.
But I respected him and his ideas and all of his works, you know.
And so, we'll say, living in Newburgh now, what are some key features and things that you remember the most?
The features now, as compared to when I was growing up, are just the features now, you know.
Yeah, so the comparison of it.
I don't know. I'm old-fashioned. I was more happy when Newburgh was old Newburgh. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
I'm old myself. You're pushing 90 years old, so I'm old myself, and I don't know. I was just, you know, like I knew a lot of people. You know, like I said,
Yeah.
it's not by name, by face, and they were friendly people. You know, and I don't know. Life is more enjoyable. I guess here in Newburgh now, what few eating places I have, you can go any place you want to and eat. You know, but back, you didn't ask me this, so I'm going to tell you.
Yep.
Excuse me. Back when I was growing up, you couldn't. You couldn't go. You could go in and get something to go, just like the old Riverview Inn that had black cooks and black waiters down
Yeah.
there. You could go in the side door and order something to go. You know, even your drinks, you couldn't go out and order them out front. You had to go through the side door there. You know. Get something to go. Did you ever know that there was a black lady that lived here in Newburgh, right where the beauty shop is now, that had a restaurant there?
Huh.
No.
I didn't know
It was
that.
called the Dewdrop Inn. And she had it there, I don't know for how many years, but when I was a young man, you know, when I was a kid, she had it there. And it's because the blacks in Newburgh didn't have anywhere they could go sit down to eat. You
Yeah.
know, and their name was Irene Cantrell. And she and her brother had made a visit to New Orleans. And they had gone into a club down there called the Dewdrop Inn, D-E-W. Drop In was somewhere down there in New Orleans. And she came back home and she opened up a restaurant over there called the Dewdrop In, D-O Drop In
Okay.
for a few years. You know, we enjoyed it. Even kids or the grown people do, because they could go up there and get a sandwich or whatever, you know, or a meal. Yeah, and I think the place caught on fire one time and she rebuilt it, but she didn't have a restaurant there anymore.
Wow.
You know. So that's another little piece of, yeah.
So how do you feel about the preservation efforts that we're currently making for the historic buildings in
Oh,
Newburgh?
that's good.
Yeah.
Excuse me, it should have happened a long time ago, you know. A couple of the old buildings that they let get away, excuse me, like the old Riverview Inn. You know,
Yes,
that was,
yeah.
that was a beautiful place, you know. And nice place, but caught on fire one night, or either caught on fire, someone set it on fire. Same thing with
Yeah.
the Odd Fellows in the post office that was across the street there, just east of there. That made its demise too sometimes, you know. But I think it's an effort, but it should have been started a long time ago
Agreed.
to preserve some of that, you know.
The 70s were a pretty destructive period for architectural history.
I know,
and
you know. Have to have respect for something in order to want to preserve it,
yes,
you know.
yes.
That's where it begins, I would think.
So I've been told that you served on Newburgh's Town Council. Do you remember or recall how you felt when you were asked to be on Town Council?
I enjoyed it, you know.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I think I was on the park board, I believe,
Okay.
before they'd asked me to get on the park board, and I was on there for a little while. Then the gentleman that I had worked with, Bob Seibert, was going to have to retire because he had some issues, family issues, I think, with his wife. And he asked me, he said, if I submit your name, would you take my position? I said, yeah, I probably would, you know. So he did. He asked me, and I joined. I enjoyed it, you know. I did what I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long were you on the council for?
Pardon?
How long were you on the council?
A little over 9 years, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
They decided they didn't need me, so I was eliminated from the race.
Oh.
But I enjoyed it so much. It was because I cared about Newburgh. It wasn't about Alonzo. It was about Newburgh.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've played a really prominent role in Newburgh.
I don't know. That depends on who you ask.
Hey.
That depends on who you ask.
Having people who truly care about the community, care about its history is really important. And
It means a lot, you know. Like I said, it wasn't about me, it was about Newburgh, you know.
yes.
Yeah.
What are some of your best memories of Newburgh?
Gosh, I have no. It'd be easier to ask me. I can answer easily if you were asking me what are my worst memories.
Okay, well, we are here to
Just-
hear both
just kidding.
sides. Whatever
No,
you
no,
want
I
to share.
had I had some good memories about Newburgh. Met a lot of nice people. One of them right there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a good place for me to grow up. You know.
Yeah.
I never left Newburgh. Not for very long. On vacation or something. You know. But I was fortunate enough to get a job with Alcoa. So it kept me around here. And before that, I don't know, I had a couple of jobs. My first job, do you want to hear this?
Yeah, I do.
My first job, excuse me, came when I was in the 8th grade. I mean, as far as a daily job. There was a lady by the name of Miss Marie George Sontag, and she was related to the Georges, I think, that finally ended up over in Colonel Sanders up in she's related to that George, you know. But she and her husband had owned the Sontag Hotel in Edwardsville, which was next door to and up over the Lowe's Theater. And she wanted someone to cook a breakfast for us. It's in the same Eichel house that lives down here next to the old church down there. But my mother would call me man, said, man could do that, you know, he'd be glad to. So I did. I went, when I cooked breakfast, and I would wash the dishes and make up her bed and whatever else. Just had a small apartment there, you know. But she was the sweetest little lady. You know? And that was when I was in grade school. Yeah, I was in 8th grade, you know. And she finally moved back to Louisville, that's where she was from. She had a son that worked for a distillery up there, Yellowstone, I believe it was, out of Louisville. And she moved back up there. She got where she was. Am I talking too low or too much?
No, you're okay.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, she moved back up with her son, and because like I said, she was getting older, you know. She lived there by herself, and I have a letter that last letter she wrote me. She said, "Call me man." She said, It's probably the last time that you hear from it. Said the arthritis has gotten me, you know. And that was, God, I don't know, it was probably 30 years ago. I still have that, you know.
Wow.
she liked me, and I just loved her, you know, man. Yeah, so I cooked the breakfast for her. You know, even when I was going to school, and over here, I'd get up and go down in the morning, cook a breakfast for her, you know. And she, funny, decided one day, she said, well, because my mother works next door, she said, I don't know if he can do that anymore. She said, I'm going to need someone to wash my underclothes for me. And my mother said, don't worry about that. She said, I'll do it. You know? But anyway, that's one of my better memories about Newburgh. One of my first jobs that I had, you know, and I enjoyed it. Didn't make a lot of money, but she was good company.
Yes, yes, uh-huh. So, let's see. How do you feel about the current socioeconomic status in Newburgh?
It's good, you know. I think they're headed in the right direction, or they're headed in the direction that they want themselves and the town to go. I think, you know. I don't have much to do with it. Like I said, when I was growing up, they had things downtown that people needed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this is different situation. Now they have things down there that people desire, you know, like gifts and, you know, personal items, and not anything down there that you really need. But there were grocery stores down there, at least 2, 3 of them most of the time. You know. And that's where we did most of our shopping. Got our drugs from Doc Westfall. You know. Yeah.
Do you see anything that is holding us back from making more positive change in Newburgh?
For here in Newburgh? Nah. I think they're doing fairly well now with the decisions that they make about running the town. Either you can run it or you can run it. If you get to a point in life where you're putting too much I in running, you get spells run, R-U-I-N. You know, a lot of times people do that. You know, instead of running something, they put too much of themselves in it, or it's about themselves. Instead of running something, you run it. You know, because it's all about I or me. But anyway, that's just one of my opinions. You know?
So in that, do you see any opportunities where you would like to see Newburgh growing more in?
Not really. You know, I wish, you know, but all the not much more room for development around here. You know, it's all been taken up. You know.
You see anything to like make the community closer together? Is there any opportunities you can see in that?
Do what? I'm sorry, huh?
Could you see any opportunities in bringing the community closer together, bringing more of that personableness back?
I wish. You cannot herd cattle if they do not want to be herded.
Yes.
You know, it's the way it is with people too. If they don't want to come together, if they were, I'm not saying that I know that a lot of them don't get along, but if you give them a piece of rope, give 10 people a piece of rope and they try to pull it in 10 different directions, it's not going to work. You know, it's just, that's just my opinion, you know.
So kind of at what point in time would you say you saw that difference of neighbors not being as like friendly as one may say, or, you know, where did you kind of see that disconnect happen?
Probably when I got on town council and began to be around more of them, I would guess, you know.
Yeah.
Back in whatever year that was. But no, Newburgh's a good place to be from. A good place to live now.
Yeah. I mean, I know I've enjoyed growing up here as well. I've enjoyed growing up here too.
So did I, you know. My dad, since you brought this up, I get carried away. Here I go again. My dad worked for W.A. Carson for years. One time they had 3 homes. They had one up here, they used to call it the Orchard, across the old Moon River, up on that hill there. Carson's on that. In fact, that's where my dad got his job with him, was up there, you know. But my dad rode a bicycle to work for years, just right up the road a couple of miles, you know. If you needed a car, get one of W.A.'s cars, it's called, you know. So one day, this is back in the 50s, Mr. Carson said, Alonzo said, we're going to sell this house up here. They had a house in Newburgh had one in 1032 Southeast 4th Street in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and they had one in Petoskey, Michigan, on Lake Walloon up there, I think it was, you know. Had 3 homes. So Mr. Carson told my dad, he said, Alonzo, he said, I'm going to sell this house up here. He said, we're going to move to Edmonds. I think he had some ownership with the Hotel McCurdy down there, you know. He said, we're going to move into there until we can get us a place, you know. So my dad thought about it. He said, well, I tell you, I guess what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to find you somebody else to cook and chauffeur you around. He said, I'm not going to ride a bicycle to Edmondsville to work. You know? So Mr. Carson told my dad, he said, well, I tell you what, Alonzo, he said, you find you a lot there in Edmondsville. He said, I'll build you a house. He said, I just wanted to keep you, you know. My dad said he thought about that. He and my mother talked it over. And my dad decided he didn't want his kids raised in Edmondsville. He was used to a small life here in Newburgh, you know. I think that was 1952, I believe it was. But that was when Chrysler was in Edmondsville.
Yep.
They made Plymouth and Dodges or something else. He bought my dad a 1952 Plymouth so he'd come to work. You know?
All right,
He
yeah.
wanted to keep him. And when he found out that Newburgh didn't have water all over until in the 60s, I guess, you know, you could have a cesspool. When he found out that we did not have indoor plumbing, he came out one day and said, Alonzo, he said, I'm going to have you a bathroom put in. You know, so he did. The contractor here, his name was Shackle, last name was Shackle. His son's still around here, I think, you know, man. Built my dad a bathroom. He wanted to keep him, you know. So anyway, he took good care of my dad, you know, man. Like one of the family, you'd say. You know. Sorry, I get carried away.
Oh, I don't mind it at all.
It's okay.
So is there anything else that you feel like you should bring up related to the Jefferson Street School and the overall African American community here?
Nah, it's like I say, it's been a good place to grow up for me. And at one time there were quite a few Afro-Americans, or blacks, or colors, whatever you want to call them, here in Newburgh. And I think there were, gosh, well over 200 kids that had gone through the colored school down there, you know, over the years, you know. And they all seem to have done well. And one of the best teachers they had down there, he lived in Newburgh when I was growing up, but was Professor L.E. Johnson. He was the first teacher that they had down there, you know. I may have a picture. You got time to look at a picture here?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, sweetheart. But
Oh, don't be sorry at all.
yeah, but you
Give
know.
no
No, it's
reason.
good. It's very good.
That is the last class that graduated out. The members of the last class that graduated out of the Newburgh Jefferson Street School.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Ivy to work here again.
And this is a picture of the graduates of 1956 class.
Okay,
of
yeah.
That school there.
Good.
That's a picture of the last window standing at the school. They were tearing school down.
Yes.
I went by there one day, and that was all that was left, was that one window.
Wow. Those are incredible. Oh, wow.
There's a picture I took, and 2 buddies and I were going back to school from lunch when over the old colored school.
Yeah,
Going back to school before we had our lunch.
Wow.
At one time, this picture was taken in 1939, but at one time they had night classes over there for people that had come up out of Kentucky mostly. They did not know how to read or write very well. So some of these people on this picture here were, you want to hold that phone?
Yeah, absolutely.
They were grown. They had, some of their kids were even in that picture there. You know, but they had classes with them where they could learn how to read and write better than they were. You know, but that was taken over at that colored school. too,
Yeah.
you know.
Uh
I think it was 1939 on that. And there's another picture that was taken over there. Yeah, that's the same picture as this is here, but
Yeah, That's great. So what would you say the literacy rate was growing up? Did you see that increase in your community, or what was?
Yeah, I think it was great. You know, so we had good teachers.
Yeah.
They would not hire anyone that was not qualified to come to Newburgh. Did I show you a picture of L.E. Johnson?
I don't know if I've seen it.
There's a picture of we call him Professor L.E. Johnson. He said that when he was from Princeton, he taught school here, and his wife taught school across the river. That she rode the ferry to, excuse me, to work every day crossing Newburgh, and she taught school over in Kentucky. But he was one of the best teachers. I have a book at home that has some of his, he kept a lot of the notes around town there. Had such beautiful writing, you know, handwriting. You know, they taught writing a script in school back then, but they don't do it anymore. Now I think I showed you that. That's some of the kids over there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there,
That's a good photo I haven't seen.
I gave you 2 guesses. I'll give you 10 guesses.
What do we think? Look at that mug you got on.
When I was going to grade school over there,
Take a look there.
there was a family that lived up in Darby Hills, they call it. You know, Darby Hills? Going up there.
Yeah.
She was Miss Bedecker. I think that she was a Darby, had married one of the Bedekers, I believe, but they had a wholesale hardware store, I believe it was, and it was on 2nd Street. I'm just guessing from my memory here. Every year, she would have all the kids from that school to come to her house for a Christmas party, and she gave every one of them a Christmas present.
Aww.
You know, but that was one that had me on it right there. You know. Yeah. I don't know what year that was. I didn't put the year on there, but it was nice growing up in Newburgh. You know.
Yeah.
Had a lot of nice people, you know, and they helped us all they could.
Yeah.
There's a picture, you probably want to see that.
There we go.
That's that Mom and Dad. My dad worked in Florida in the
It's a
wintertime,
really
in
good
Michigan in
photo.
the summertime for a couple of months. And that picture was taken, the Carsons would bring my mother to Fort Lauderdale, Florida to be with my dad for a month in February, month of February every year. You know, so that was a picture they took when they were in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Wow,
together,
okay. Wow. I love the clothing. You have some really wonderful photos. It's incredible that you've kept so many photos.
Yeah, my
and
mother kept a lot of
writings.
that, you know.
It's really good to do that, and I hope people in this generation continue to do
Yeah,
that.
I wish, you know, but my kids don't seem to have any interest.
That's a shame.
It's
I
a
hear a
shame,
lot of
you know.
that, though.
It's so sad, you know.
Yeah.
So I have pictures of my grandparents at home, and I was telling Shirley not long ago, when I'm gone, nobody will know, you know, because nobody cares, man. You know, it's so sad. And one daughter of mine that showed a little interest in it, she's the one that passed here a couple of years ago, you know, but the other kids, they don't have any interest in that at all, man, you know. I did, but my mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I understand.
yeah. I showed you a picture of my mother when she graduated from that school, didn't I?
I think so. Let me see.
That's when my mother.
Okay, yes,
She
I've
gra-
seen this.
You've seen that,
Yeah, uh-huh.
That was 1914. She graduated from the 8th grade over there.
1914, 8th grade. Wow.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
sweet.
Wow.
Her father had bought her a bouquet of roses. He's so proud of her.
Well, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.